James Carter was a man who had seen the world change before his very eyes. A retired veteran, he had spent decades building a life with his late wife, Margaret, in the quiet suburbs of a once friendly community. Their home, a modest but well-kept house on the corner lot, was more than just four walls and a roof. It was a living history of their love, their struggles, and their triumphs. Every nail, every brick held a story. The kitchen still smelled of Margaret's famous apple pie. The backyard had the tree swing where their son played as a child, and the front porch was where they had sat together, rocking in old wooden chairs, watching the sunset. But life, as it often does, had been cruel. Margaret passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and soon after, their only son and his wife were lost in a car accident, leaving behind their 16-year-old son, Ethan. James, despite his age and grief, did what any grandfather would. He took Ethan in, determined to give him a stable home. But the world had grown colder, and the neighborhood he once knew had changed. The Homeowners Association, which was once just a group of neighbors looking out for each other, had turned into something far more sinister, an iron-fisted regime run by people who saw dollar signs where families saw memories. And James? James was just another old man standing in the way of their plans. James knew trouble was brewing the day a crisp white envelope was left in his mailbox. He opened it with hands worn from time and service, only to find a list of violations that made his blood run cold. The paint on his fence was fading. His lawn wasn't uniform enough. His wheelchair ramp for Ethan was unapproved. The fines weren't just ridiculous. They were escalating, piling up like a slow-moving landslide designed to bury him in debt. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Surely, they wouldn't go after an elderly veteran and his orphaned grandson. But then came the visits. The HOA president, Richard Holloway, a man who reeked of cologne and entitlement, showed up on his doorstep one afternoon, flashing a smile so fake it could crack like old plaster. "James," he had said, voice dripping with artificial sympathy, "we're just trying to maintain property values. I know things have been tough for you since Margaret passed, and we want to help you transition." Transition. That was their polite way of saying they wanted him gone. They weren't after his compliance. They were after his home. The corner lot was prime real estate for the HOA's new plan, a redevelopment project that would rake in millions. James was just an obstacle to be removed, and they thought he was too old, too weak, and too alone to fight back. What they didn't realize was that James had spent his life fighting battles much worse than this. Perhaps the worst part of it all wasn't the HOA, it was the neighbors. The people James had known for decades, the ones who had eaten at his dinner table, sent Christmas cards, and once called themselves friends, had gone silent. It wasn't that they didn't care, it was that they were afraid. Afraid of fines, afraid of retaliation, afraid of being next on the HOA's hit list. At first, James held out hope that someone would stand with him. When Margaret died, neighbors had brought casseroles and kind words. When his son passed, they sent flowers. But when the HOA came after him, the only thing he got was silence. He'd see them peek through their curtains when the HOA agents parked in front of his house, hear their whispers when he walked past. The same people who had once asked about Ethan's schoolwork now avoided eye contact. One evening, he found a note on his porch, anonymous, written in hurried, shaky handwriting. "They did this to the Johnsons. Don't fight them, James. They'll bury you in legal fees." He clenched the paper in his fist, his jaw tightening. They wanted him to be afraid. They wanted him to break. But what the HOA didn't understand was that James had already lost more than they could ever take from him. Fear was something he had learned to live without a long time ago. James wasn't the only one who refused to go down without a fight. Ethan, his grandson, had been watching, listening, absorbing every detail. He wasn't just some quiet kid lost in grief. He was sharp, observant, and most importantly, determined. Unlike most teenagers his age, Ethan didn't spend his nights playing video games or scrolling through social media. No, Ethan spent his nights buried in books, consuming legal documents, watching court trials, and researching everything he could about property laws. What started as curiosity quickly turned into an obsession, fueled by the injustice happening right in front of him. He learned about HOA loopholes, studied similar cases, and read up on the Fair Housing Act. James would catch him at the kitchen table, eyes flicking between an old law textbook and a laptop screen filled with legal codes. "You don't have to do this, kid," James had told him one night. Ethan just looked up, his expression serious beyond his years. "They think we're weak, Grandpa," he said. "But they have no idea what we're capable of." And he was right. The HOA thought they were dealing with an old man past his prime and a helpless teenager. They had no idea they had just provoked a quiet genius with a fire in his belly and a mind sharper than any lawyer they could buy. As Ethan prepared for battle, the HOA doubled down on their attacks. They started small, intimidation tactics designed to wear James down. Notices appeared more frequently. Inspectors randomly showed up, measuring tape in hand, conveniently finding new violations every time. Then came the threats, veiled at first, hidden beneath polite language. Failure to comply may result in legal action. Non-payment of fines could lead to a lien against the property. But when that didn't work, they got bolder. One night, James woke to the sound of heavy machinery. He rushed outside, heart pounding, only to find HOA workers in reflective vests digging into his yard. "What the hell is this?" he barked. One of them barely spared him a glance. "Boundary adjustment," the worker grunted. They were moving his property line, stealing inches of his land as if he wouldn't notice. The audacity, the sheer gall of it, sent James into a rage. He knew exactly what they were doing. They were setting him up. If he so much as set foot on the now adjusted land, they'd slap him with a trespassing violation, use it as leverage in court. It was calculated. It was ruthless. And it was exactly what Ethan had been preparing for. James stormed back inside, slamming the door behind him, only to find Ethan already pulling up legal documents on his laptop. "They just made their first mistake," Ethan muttered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Now we have them." This sets up a gripping, emotional, and lesson-filled story packed with injustice, determination, and resilience. It's designed to hook your audience, making them root for James and Ethan while despising the corrupt HOA. The stakes are clear, the tension is rising, and the stage is set for an epic courtroom showdown where the underdog fights back.